MacGruber, you all were throwing out some awesome ideas, and I wanted to make sure that I go over something that I included after the stream went down last night, but I made notes about it on the Discord. Let's bring up the Frontier Town. Now, the Frontier Town had this circle of stones that existed. And so we put a hill here, and I put some little stones, and this is about the time that the stream derped out. So I don't know how much of this you all caught. And here was my thought. The stones don't necessarily have to be druidic, per se. If this is where the nomads who were coming into this region made a semi-permanent establishment, what if they did this? What if they built a mound and they sunk these stones into it? Now, the frontiers that moved here, or the frontiersmen that moved here, might not look at it the same and say, well, it's rocks, it's probably, something magical, or, it's the ruins of maybe a great kind of a, like a Parthenon or something along those lines. Consider this. What shape is a hill? Oh. Right? So we have our ground. What if the hill, like this, and so we have a circle of stones. I'm using some artistic license here, my art friends. So please forgive me for the perspective. And some broken ones and whatever. Alright? Could also be something like Bruna Boyne? Buon? Can you get into detail? I don't know about that. And so, to an outsider, right, we have a frontiersman who says, boy howdy. There's a 10-gallon hat. Boy, howdy, this looks like it's some ruins. Whatever. It's not hurting anything. It's historical. Maybe we can draw some inspiration off of this. Azrael, I suppose all hills are boob-shaped. But more importantly, it's a convex shape. It's in Ireland. They're old catacombs built into a hill. MacGruber, you are somewhat a step ahead. Not 2 steps ahead, you're 1 step ahead. And so if the frontiers people never really looked into this beyond, so this is, it's whatever. It's a bunch of stones stuck into a hill. Well, here comes our player characters as we're running this campaign setting, and our PCs find, what's this? And now there's an entire this is actually it's hollowed out. And what if the reason for this was because we have these nomads who are chasing a falling star or a comet? They came to this area, and because they thought it was going to fall somewhere around here. And now what do you do with a drunken sailor? No. What do you do if you sink a bunch of stone that has quartz or maybe not too smoky volcanic glass or other elements through this shell in a pattern, we suddenly have a depiction of constellations and a night sky. And so if we have our natives here, they could look and they could track the night sky in accordance to their prophecy of the falling star, which is why they established a semi-permanent residence here until the star fell. And then they chased it. Some of them got lost in this newly flooded swamp, you know, and everything else happened as we've been talking about. Actually, it's literally hollow. An astrodome. but who's paying the naming fees on it? Yeah, McGruber, you're welcome to. Thank you for asking. Yep. So something along these lines. If the stones are sunk into it, and they allow for light to pass down through it, while still being sealed, so it's not going to like corrupt or anything. Instead of a cairn, like a burial area, like what we see here, this could be a huge clue to our player characters. The significance of things, the meaning of things. And now let's take this idea that, I mean, I presented it last night, but y'all didn't see it. Oh, hey, there's a cat. Because of internet issues. What did Azrael say, aside from hills being boob-shaped? When the totem poles align, a chosen one will be born. And that could be a doom prophecy. So how do we know then? You know, that's not happening. Like, we can get a clue here. How do we know then if there's a totem pole or several in this case and it's slowly turning? And as we discover, these people are all loosey-goosey. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. When the stars are right, when the totem poles are right, because instead of stones sunk through a hill, they have totem poles arranged in a way that could follow the what if every island has a constellation, or even a part of a constellation? And this could be a representation, a foretelling, a prophecy. So your players at Frontier Town discover this, and they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's a night sky. I don't know what it means. Maybe some of the stars have changed. Maybe they haven't. But what does it mean? What does it mean? Adventuring happens. They make contact with these people. They learn about the cuisine. They learn about the strong drink. They learn about the lore, the history, and they find that the swamp people are deeply religious people, especially compared to their forest cousins. And if we take Azrael's idea about the totem poles aligning, you know, with the skies, like, you know, coming and going in this regard, then it would seem that we have a very cool event that can happen at some point in time in this sandbox adventure. Is it the main focus? We could certainly make a storyline around that. And about welcoming it or preventing it, or there's a, you know, by doing so, are you interrupting? You know, are these people actually trying to summon down another, you know, another comet or something? Or what happens? You know, was the comet the fist of an angry god? Was it the eye of a watchful mother? You know, we could ascribe all kinds of symbolism to this. Or it's just a natural event and these are natural people. Because remember, they have been made into aspects of the land. That's what they mutated into. These are people of the land. This is why natural, difficult terrain doesn't slow them down. They move kind of slowly, but natural, difficult terrain doesn't slow them down. They don't need roads. Where they're going, they don't need roads. Because they can just trudge through underbrush like it's nothing. That doesn't mean now that they can't have things like elk or moose, right? Especially if we're talking a more chilly environment up here. They may very well have waged war. The swamp people and the forest people. You could have had people riding dire moose. Oof. I mean, moose already kill how many people per year? But now we have dire moose, going through the forest in these. And why it's dire? This is an acceleration area. This is an area of growth, of extreme growth, and so wildlife can kind of go back and forth or do whatever. Or we're just talking about even a normal moose is a threat here, and so they're riding in during this civil war with the forest people. Speaking of flora and fauna. Also, if anyone's ever going to Brunaboyne, I'm probably mispronouncing that, forgive me. Plan ahead, they have awful tour times. But it is a great place to see and not far from my favorite town in Ireland. Feral dire moose. Now we're just playing Munchkin and we're adding combat. We're trying to screw over a friend of ours and we just keep adding adjectives to a monster. I would love to go sometime, McGruber. Part of my family lineage is Irish, although I do have Welsh and German blood. I think a lot more predominantly. A rabbit. So now, all right. So like it was a moose, and it was probably like what a level 2 monster. It's a dire moose, which is probably going to put it up to. Level 7. A feral dire moose is probably going to put it up to level 12. And if we add rabid, that probably means that you can only run away on a 6. Drogheda is an amazing town in Ireland with a ton of history. Yeah, I would love to go to explore, my own family's past, to just enjoy modern culture, to look at old culture, of course, sample the cuisine. To see the castles, to look at the cairns and graveyards and architecture and churches and villages and all the like. Now it's a giant rabbit. McGruber, you're you are savage in a game of Munchkin, aren't you? Oh, well, that's really cool, O'Sheeps. British, German, Italian, and Native American. A true mutt. Yep. But you know what, O'Sheeps? We wouldn't have you any other way. Zuller Pie just keeps... Man, who are we dumping on? Is this someone that's getting ready to go to level 10 from level 9? Because in that case, I mean, that's fine. Completely legit strategies. But if y'all are blowing your hands in Munchkin to prevent this person from going from like level 2 to 3, this is a vindictive game. Y'all are an amazing mix. Now the man knows, says Azrael. So yeah, look at this. So Azrael, that was an awesome idea. Now, does that tether the islands? I don't know. I don't know if they should be tethered by ropes or vines. I like the fact that we have our kind of frozen, our central one. And in some ways, what if this inadvertently, because of the crystal kind of freezing it in place, what if this is actually actually it grows as the glacier does? But no one's ever seen the glacier. And this is now the cosmos swirling around, and we have this fixed point, and when the totems are right around it. We can weave so much culture and religion into this through a sense of mystery and discovery, because the swamp people probably have forgotten about this establishment here when they were whatever race that they were as nomads before they were changed to whispers. And we can tell a story if our players, and well, if through their player characters, want to pursue a religious mystery or a looming disaster. Or would you tell them that there's a prophecy and they're like, yeah, well, whatever, there's always a prophecy. Yeah, it's a quaint, backwater religion, sure. Let them believe whatever they want. We're here to find treasure. Okay, well, there's plenty of treasure around, I'm sure. An ascended Nephilim moose. This is, man. Is Munchkin online? It might be fun to play a game of Munchkin on stream with y'all. I wouldn't like you anymore. McGruber, you are a savage Munchkin player. I mean, I'd still give it a try. I like seeing how strategic folks can be. Especially if you do any politicking at the table when you're playing Munchkin. What is Munchkin? Oh, my sweet summer child. Munchkin is literally role-playing games. How they should be. A cutthroat world of gear acquisition, of screwing each other over, and of being the first to get goodies and not really care about a story. I'm a firm believer in handicapping my opponents more than building my strengths. So yeah, Oh Sheeps, look at Munchkin by Steve Jackson Games. It's a lot of fun. It's a parody of role-playing games, and it's its own thing, and that's fine, because so is David S. Pumpkins. You've never played Munchkin? Oh, man, we might have to have a Munchkin night. It's technically role-playing / Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah, it's not an expensive game either. It's been out forever. I mean, you might even be able to find a copy at Goodwill or something. And even if it's missing cards, don't worry about it. Oh, because Munchkin is, Munchkin is a company for babbies. And you're only slightly offended by it. Oh, because, are you a short stack there, Oh Sheeps? You don't have to answer. You don't have to give out personal details. My D&D experience started on your channel 2 weeks ago. Well crowdfunded, a whole new world. That's where you'll be. A wondrous place for you and me. Oh yeah, tons of expansions. Make up your own cards. Shorter than most, but taller than others. So it's a definite possibility. McGruber says that he is at least 3 foot 6 inches. Maybe. So we can now link this to the frontier town if that is our gateway in. So I don't know. Do you all like this idea? Does this sound cool? If you were a player character and you discovered that this place at the locals is sort of like, yeah, it's the old burial hill, whatever. Because maybe it seemed like it. Maybe they actually were using bones to support, to act as structure. Or if they dug a little bit into it, because this could be 3, 5, 6 feet, whatever you want it to be. They're like, oh, it's just a bunch of buried trash. It's some shells and fish and pottery. But they built the dome and then they packed it full of dirt and let the grass grow over it. And so they only ever dug far enough down, boop, 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 to take a chunk out of it and be like, yeah, it's pottery, whatever. It's a mound. And probably the high school kids come up here and neck behind the stones. I'm tall for a human, short for a giant. Well, at least we were all at one point in time knee-high to a grasshopper. Imagination. Ooh, all the control Z's. You know, I should probably just, honestly, I should probably just hit new, but we're going back in time. Oh, that's it. We went as far back as we could. I'm going to have to hit new anyway. Don't save. I can draw this again. Alrighty. So we have our inspiration. We have our main island. It's going to be surrounded by this swamp area, and let's include a couple of the others here, just to show a little show and tell. I'll move this off somewhat, put this on screen for Yuns to see, and then draw out the swamp area right over here. Ooh, pardon. It's alright, MacGruber. If you ever want it back, open up an MS Paint and make a laying down D, or type in 8008 in your favorite calculator. It lives on in your heart. There you go. That's an elegant solution, MacGruber, and one that both parties, I hope, can appreciate. And I'm here to entertain and educate. I gotta learn you something. This is too much fun. It's supposed to be serious. This is Dungeons and Dragons. We're making a map of a fictional area to entertain our players. This is no time for fun and games. For shenaniganery of the highest order. Serious business, that's right. Darn tootin'. We's highfalutin broadcasters here. Using them $2 words. I'm gonna draw some squiggles, everyone. Let's enjoy. Here's our main island. Let's make a fun little harbor or something right here. No, MacGruber, you're fine. Don't worry about it. If we're not in a good fun mood, you've kept it within the realm of PG-13. Don't worry about it. You're So we have our area here, and then we'll kind of flesh out the two smaller islands. Maybe that one has a bit of a bay. Ooh. And this one we'll have kind of off the map because this is larger. And again, we don't really know the scale. Does that matter? I don't know. Maybe. Now, what the larger regional map doesn't show, if maybe these are just the major named islands. This would be like the Keys in Florida. There's keys that are named, but there's also just little kind of sandbars, little mangrove islands, things that don't necessarily have names, but they're growths. They're things along those lines. There could even be like some natural quasi land bridges or something. So we have just like a bunch of, we have our swirling islands and we give them a name, but we could also just have some other little floaters that are just here and there. And are they a part of the prophecy? Are they the smaller stars, or are they just, driftwood that doesn't count because they haven't been, there's not a totem placed on it. And so we could go and speckle in a bunch of stuff if we really wanted to. Do we want to? Maybe not. So I'm going to give them a purple outline, but to help represent the different islands, especially because this one is going to have a colder core to it. Let's draw out a... Let's see. This would be kind of like a snowflake, maybe. We can give it... This could also help stand out in this natural phenomena. If something seems constructed or it's natural, but if something seems out of place. And so if we come up here and make a vaguely hexagonal. There have been epic discussions at tabletops about the pronunciation of such a thing. But we have our little Arctic center. You know, that's kind of like keeping everything here. We'll fill this in. And we can give things kind of a dark purple, but I think what would work, let's show that there's actually kind of a lush green inside the purple. And if we want, we can always go through with maybe some spray paint. And then we can just kind of, just tag it as... You know, so it's marshy, but this is mostly, you know, mud and muck and moss and other words that don't have to begin with M. But it's solid enough that there is grass and trees, and we can represent that. You know, there could be some cypress or... other... cedars. We could have some good cedar, some willows. Willows could work. But anyway, there we go. So we gave it the outline. We're giving it a little bit of the treatment to show that, yeah, it's marshy, but it's solid. We could even do some cross-hatching. Oh my goodness, everyone. We could cross-hatch with a spray paint because we are artists and we're allowed to do this. So there you go. Enjoy. Officially, it's pronounced hexagonal. But I want to call it hexagonal. So we have our region here. We have 2 totem poles in our main area. And if we're going to... so this could end up being our totem poles. Let's have it really stand out with our colors. And we can put one... if this was an east to or west to east starfall, then we can represent that by perhaps having a west and east totem pole. That's been built here. So there's our totem poles. There's a dead magic zone that could be either just on the ice sheet or the more Arctic core. It could be spread throughout. The totem poles they don't even have to be magical. They are kind of mystical in an arcane sense. But maybe because if this is something like the glacial ice, which manipulates magic in certain ways, it could be affecting it here. So we have our dead magic zone, and if we really needed to, because I'm sure the locals would be aware of it, we can always go through and delineate, you know, the patches of dead magic. How far has it spread? You know, is it really just the fringes? Does the dead magic zone mirror the hexagonal shape, or is it just kind of like spreading and all loosey-goosey? You know, are there different boundaries, or do we really just, you know, maybe it's almost everything except by the shore, because maybe something about the shore, you know, is pieces and parts, but the totem poles allow for magic. And so we bring this around, with the exception of here. Like, it's, for whatever reason, it's just caught. And if we really want to, for a reason that's not obvious, but maybe they discover that, because there's always something to discover. Something not seen. Ooh, maybe it kind of grants, like, it radiates out this way. Now, what's here? I don't know. You want a coven of hags living on this swampy island that's, you know, instituting magic? And it's a magic okay zone? Is there something buried here? Maybe something caught in all the dead wood and in the muck, in the swampy strata that is part of this kind of like permafrost style underpinnings of the island. What if, you know, it could be a creature, it could be a person. There could be a clue of some kind. Yes, it becomes fresh water before the swamp. Okay, I will look for a message about the trade, Shukan. Or, yeah, if we want to reverse it and say that the totems are creating a null magic zone. Now, we did discuss, you know, this island was probably chosen... this island was probably chosen as a neutral ground because the anti-magic allowed for no manipulation emotionally or whatever. People could trust themselves. So maybe they met at the totems. And so, you know, by doing this, we can sit back and say, well, how do we want this? Do we want this to be the yellow, you know, the left side or the right side of the yellow is the anti-magic area? Is the anti-magic around the shore and dipping into the icy center? Or is it the other way around? And you know what? As a dungeon master, until your players encounter this, it could be in that state of quantum flux. Either until you make a decision based on something your party does that you think would be appropriate and cool. You like the idea, maybe you don't have the execution down. Or you don't know the detail, you want to see how your players react. And make that decision then. But you know what? Let's put ideas on paper. We can always go back and change this. This is MS Paint. We've invested 5 minutes in this so far. Now, it's a map. You know, we can still generally follow it. But we can just go back and edit things that we don't want. Be helpful against invaders if the shore was anti-magic. Now, if we do that then, what if the other totem poles on the other islands then have a similar effect? And so if we come over here and let's drop a totem pole here, and this other one probably has one totem pole, and it could even be off the map, but then what we can do is come back, and this ends up being, you know, if the totem pole resonates with the shape, then, you know, if we're saying maybe the shape is taking on characteristics of this or that, then we just go like this. And over here, we can indicate on this map, boop. And there we go. A relic from a time long ago before the government broke up Microsoft and they gave us such cool things for free. Yeah, it is. It's a, you know, for the longest time, I still had the Microsoft Movie Maker software, and oh man, that was so easy to use, and you could still do really good stuff with it. You could, it was very versatile, and that's where I learned my basic editing, digital editing on it. And then Microsoft said, we're not going to support it anymore, and you can't get it. So, nanner nanner boo boo. And we'll show you where you can place your head. You still use Movie Maker? Yo, you can. Oh my goodness. Well then. Drop a totem pole. Never heard it referred to in that manner before. Guess that's after you visit a very diverse buffet. XD. Welcome to Dungeons and Dragons, everyone. We are steeped in lore and vernacular and Italian hand gestures. Let's see what else here. Destitute. Oh yeah, so we need to talk about you know, do they have a society of some kind? It is destitute. They could live in trees. I mean, this could very well be a very accurate map because, you know, the trees might shift or things might fall. A lot of them might still live on poles, like houses on poles. There is a temple to a good deity. And a gambling den. So if this is the anti-magic zone, a gambling den would be very important here. So maybe we can have one of our large kind of astral totem poles also then be where this this important gambling den is. This is red. I don't know if any of you are colorblind, but I am using red on green. Yeah, I can make and do with what I have here. So we can place that here. Because why would you ever allow magic in a gambling place? If you don't like money or reputation or security, then you would. So there's our gambling den, our very important place. So it's close to the water, it's accessible. It's under the auspices of this place, right? The tavern is the Golden Lamb. And if the lamb is considered to be like, you know, we have the Lamb of God, or, you know, lambs have their own, you know, lambs led to the slaughter kind of a thing. Pardon. That could be playing into the religion of this comet that fell. You know, the golden lamb, the golden fleece, the golden sheep, something along those lines that's here. Now, the temple is probably a place that would be practicing magic. And, as we discussed, also, let's not turn down the chance for consistency in randomness and then fool ourselves into thinking that this was meant to be the entire time and not just a product of random number generation. If the Glacier Temple to the Frontiers people has the shard, and they are also a temple, though one that studies magic and death, death doesn't have to be evil, by the way. We could have a very pragmatic extenuation of that culture down here. And then that could give a clue. Imagine this, right? You are a player character. You're in the swamp. You go through the frontier town. You learn about the people who live on the glacier and what they're all about. You learn that there is limited to no contact with the swamp dwellers. Although they see, you know, some scouts saw that they used totem poles. And so they affixed totem poles to the forts in order to be able to welcome them, should any of them ever come up through the swamp or through another fashion. So it's kind of a monkey see, monkey do situation. If we have this glacial place, now what if it's the nature of the ice to foster this? Or the ice is somehow a part of the religion, or a part of this influence, this magical influence that this comet has had. And so it just offers these whispers. Or the whispers are a projection of the nomad's hopes and dreams, or something along those lines. It plays into the prophecy of doom. And so we can put a similar temple smack dab. What's a good smack? Pink. Pink is a good smack dab color. Smack dab here in the middle of the ice. Good deity? Gambling den? Do I hear Temple of Hermes? Maybe there's an aboleth inside the ice trying to free itself? Could be. If you want to unleash an aboleth on these people as a DM, it seems like this could be a good way to go about it. Can you give a brief description of the Whisper race for those who weren't here? Emdrai. Aha! 13 for a first dibs on a monster menagerie 3. Coming right up, sir. I'm sorry. The proper Southern gentleman, suh. S-U-H. I've been lurking and listening, just not the super chatty thing. That's fine, Tristleflumph. Hey, rest up, and I hope you're enjoying the theory crafting. You're enjoying the exercises we're going through, and you're having a couple laughs on the side. Oh, the cat. So cat butts apparently for Tristleflumph. I like the swamp. And by the way, so a gambling den also, among people who say, you know, que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. This may vary, like this could be the main part, but each island itself may have a notable casino. Who knows? Well, I mean, we do and we don't at the same time. It could be whatever we want. I want us to express our freedom here. I want us to look at everything that we've made before and draw from it and accent it and connect it all together. Just because we're making a sandbox doesn't mean everything is disparate. It can still be cohesive. All of the elements, if your player characters just went on a travel log, they can still tie clues together. What happened here? You know, they get to be anthropologists. In a sense, they can also be archaeologists. They can be historians. Somewhere, somehow, you can distantly hear All-Star playing from a distance, followed by the faint echo of "What are you doing in this? What are you doing in the swamp?" Or in what do we do? What are you doing in me swamp? Yeah, exactly. So a description. The crowdfunded was getting into it here. At some point in time, there was a group of nomads that looked like something. Humanoid? Whatever. Octopus people? Centaurs? I don't know. They're nomads. As we built our story, they stopped by this region and were chasing or predicting the fall of a star. You know, a meteor and or a comet, something like that. I mean, we could even say if we didn't want it to be the one, it could be two. Whatever. The meteor struck, and it struck the swamp, you know, shattering. Like, it shattered the continental plate. You have a bunch of jagged mountains popping up, and it created this low-lying area where the swamp is. It then bounced and rolled, like singeing and searing away plant life and scooping up and throwing aside dirt. So it created this canyon until it came to a rest, pushing up a bunch of dirt and loose rock and gravel in the more kind of like old wet Appalachian mountains, as opposed to the very, you know, stern, craggy, rocky mountains here. And so the nomads moved from their frontier, their semi-permanent area here, and they explored the crash site first. Well, here in this swamp that was obviously filling with water, and it might have been salt water at first because the mushrooms might have come about through the mutations. A good portion of the nomads were lost in the swamp. And so the others just had to cut their losses and continue. This was way too important. And so they did, and they found themselves in the forest. And time passed. The effects of the fallen star had mutated the local wildlife and vegetation, and that could even have included the nomads, who suddenly took on aspects of this fog, of this chill, of the mist of the land, and the land itself, which is also why they're not slowed by natural difficult terrain. At some point then, later, they found each other. Maybe they were friends for a good long while. There was a breakdown. It could have involved this prophecy of doom, especially because the forest people grew to want to study the fallen star with a more of an agnostic take, a scientific take on this. And so they committed themselves to studying it as an academic research style. At some point, there was a civil war between these will-o-wisp style people, right? You have a light core that floats around in kind of a misty, semi-solid ectoplasm. The Civil War has ended X amount of years prior to this. Recent-ish enough history when we are imagining a story like the sandbox opening up and our imaginary player characters rolling into the frontier town, which is their last bastion of civilization before they enter the wilds and go and make contact with these whispers and the like. Here's my sign. Gonna pass out. See you next time, Space Cowboy. Cheers to you, crowdfunded. Thank you for hanging out, and thank you for helping to catch up MacGruber. I hope I didn't steal your thunder, because I was kind of just looking into the camera and doing that while you were also providing like a text version. Plot twist: the swamp water is pudding. Oh my goodness. Trustaflump, I'm just about done with mapping out this settlement, talking about their culture and religion, and then we'll pop open your box. My buddy made a D6 fantasy and used second ed for monsters and whatnot. As we were getting close to the end of the campaign, he had a note with Doom written on it and would pop up from the DM screen from time to time. Thumb ups. Do flumps even have thumbs? They do. Little known fact. Oh my goodness. So with a map like this, we can do a couple different things. If there's a couple cities or small villages that make up this is why it's the most populous island. You know, we can signify them with dots of something. You know, hopefully it'll stand out. It's a little bit more jarring. Let's see, we have a light orange. We can also do things like this. If you're mapping, especially if you have these segmented regions, and something that we could also go back and do if we were to expand the frontier area a little bit more. What about general shipping lanes? That's not going to stand out as much. Let's use something darker here. and we could put like we could put some kind of a town here. It could occupy, if this is smaller, maybe the town is taking up most of this, and then they just have their own. Boop. Or if you wanted to lead around to the anti-magic area. So don't forget about stuff like shipping lanes and roads as well. You know, if we want to connect areas with roads, and this may very well not even be a straight line because of how things exist in the canopy or the trees or even on the ground as it goes over bumps and everywhere. So you could have you could even just let it flow. Boop. Yeah, it goes around here. We'll have it go to the ice area. There's a temple, so there's one road that'll lead to the temple. Otherwise, maybe this is inaccessible, and the road splits here and continues to go around. Maybe it dips a little bit out this way, follows along, comes back, and reconnects here. And if you like how this looks, then put a little a marker, right? So we have our totem pole. Here's our big gambling area. So this could also represent a city if we want. If we do that, then let's go back to red. And so we have one that's inside anti-magic if we want it coastal. Then let's put one inside here. And so right before it dips out and goes along, right here, this is a good place for another establishment. And then let's put one right on the crossroads as well. In fact, this one, if we wanted to make the crossroads be the border here, we could even make a bordering, right? It straddles the two. We come over here, and maybe this island has like a little fishing village. So just a wee babby, a little wee babby triangle. And this one might have a population of 1,000. That's here. Meanwhile, like this could be a population of 5,000 and 10,000. You know, so this is a bigger central. We haven't established a scale. So right now, in our conceptual phase of thinking of this, we could be looking at, you know, this could be the size of Rhode Island. This could just be 20 miles across. This could be the size of Australia if we really wanted to. I mean, that would definitely throw the region out of into an interesting proportion. But if you get what I'm saying. But if your maps have common symbolism, you know, you have a key to it. If you do establish a distance, if you do establish some things and you're consistent with it, then you can hand your players a map of the swamp and say, look, this is what it looks like right now, but the islands are always drifting. And this should be easy enough for them to follow. All right, got it. So everywhere else is kind of swampy. You know, you could describe it like whatever. You know, whatever could be common for them to think about. Dark blue is a road. You name your three you name your three like civilized outposts. Maybe you even name the totem poles or something like that. You describe, so what's the blue thing in the center? Oh, well, that's where the ice is radiating. That seems to be fixing this area in the swamp to the swamp floor, or it's, if we said that the crystal was a part of the original strike, maybe this is floating over the, you know, the deepest part of the swamp where the comet made an impact. And the ice is like a pillar. If they followed this ice pillar below the swamp waters, it might go down quite a while, quite a ways, into some very deep, dark, and cold, murky water. And so the ice is a column kind of coming up and blooming, being drawn up by this crystal that could have been ejected by the comet. You lose that on pay, kind of sucks, but you get the day off, so I don't normally work Fridays anyways. Oh, okay. And all from this, right? From everything that we've been doing, a couple hours a night, and half of it is just having fun and telling jokes and you know, just kind of some side table talk. Look at everything that we've built so far. Look at we've built a culture, a religion. We've built hundreds, thousands of years of history. Both you know, made by sentient people and geological history, even supernatural history. And we've created some areas where we can have conflict within society. We have those remote, you know, that remote kind of creepy lakeside built into the glacier people from the frontier town. But it seems like the swamp folk here might have something similar. We're creating connections between the locations that could make for clues. We have unique vegetation, unique culinary experiences, unique transportation available. And you know what? Our forest people that we're going to make tomorrow are going to have their own unique expression as well. Their own things that they eat, their own things that they cultivate. You know, we said the swamp people rode on like dire moose into combat, which is fine. I have no problem with that. You know, maybe there's other forces at work, because we kind of are going to have a society of druids, clerics, and why am I derping? Rangers, monks too, maybe. But they're all kind of, you know, laid back, kind of loosey goosey, easy like a Sunday morning. Next to the more martial prowess, the learned people of the forest. And so, of course, we're talking wizards of all stripes. This is just classes, subclasses based on scores. Eldritch Knights, so we have fighters that can use magic, and arcane tricksters as well. But that would lend itself to, pretty well to having, you know, maybe more of a magical bend for approximately half the population, the swamp folk, and a more, not that there's not magic, but there's a lot of martial prowess in study, right? They're informed, they learn the land, they can probably set traps easier or better because they have that intelligence of the forest people as they fought. And war is a part of culture, just as talking about them growing rice and okra and catching crawdads and like plants that taste like meat. We didn't really get into like a special vegetation per se, Shukan. We kind of threw in like a generic, you know, insert interesting fantasy thing here. Swamp people can eat forest people? I don't know. Maybe cannibalism could be a cultural thing. You know, because that was another thing too. Is hey, Coffee, welcome back. So yeah, I am super happy with this. We have created so much lore, and we have delved into it, because now if you're a player, getting close to bedtime, we'll hold out just a little bit longer, because I'm going to crack open a box for a first dibs pull for Trustaflumph here in a minute. So, you know, we've created so much that if our players are exploring our sandbox, we can answer a lot of questions, we can dangle a lot of hints. There's so much that we can expose them to, and as a dungeon master, we're comfortable because we know what happened, and we can see where this is going, and so we can measure out the clues along the way, and we can also make modifications. You know, if we come in here and whatever, the PCs just are not built to care about stars or religion or something like that, we can still say that it exists and it's important, but instead, if we don't want to go for the doom of prophecy.
Zwei Ravika. Zufriedenstellen, Matti. Der Rest für die Sache.
Oh, I will have to go to the store tomorrow and get Ravnica boxes for you, Azrael. I don't have any Ravnica at the house at the moment. I do have Ravnica at the store. So tell me how you'd like to proceed on that. Yes, you can't get enough. We are steeped in lore and history and religion and even philosophy here, with this new and interesting race that we could be exploring. So anyway, instead then, if you get a sense you've made this sandbox and your players just don't care a lick about impending doom, because they look at these whispers like whatever, they're throwbacks. What? Yeah, let them worship the stars. How dumb is that? You know. Meanwhile, they're like, oh, I'm praying to my pantheon for my magic. You know, whatever, 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. Instead, you can say then, instead of the mystic route of the islands will align at some point in time and draw in this, you know, and draw the prophecy to a head. Instead, they could be tasked with figuring out how do we line up the islands, because everything's in place, and we actually want this holy configuration of stars and constellations that the islands and the totem poles make up, but we don't know how to go about getting the islands to be fixed. How do we tether them, or how do we cement them in place? Cement. Very drawn out 2 syllables with the drawl. With ice, kind of like the main island has been, and of course, where does the ice come from? And it turns into problem solving, and you're helping people out. Have you lost anything as a DM? Yeah, if you're still having fun, and you know your players are, and they want to be a problem solver instead of wait for doom to befall them, there you go. And it's all right here for you. And we used a document that you could use in free Open Office, and we used MS Paint. And look at everything that we have developed for this area. It's amazing. It's freeing. It's inspiring.